Hi, everybody, and welcome to this workshop called How to Create a Home Yoga Practice. This might be one of the biggest questions that I get all the time from people who just don't have any idea of how to maintain or even create a home yoga practice. So today, we're going to figure out how to do that, and not only do that, but stick to it. So if you're just joining in, go ahead and in the chat box, let us know where you're joining from. And if you have any questions that come up during this session, feel free to leave them in the chat box and we'll attend to them after the session. We're going to do kind of a little informative presentation, and then we'll practice a little bit together, and then I'll open it up for questions and answers section at the end. So let's jump right into it. First things first, my name is Kristy. I'm the owner of Wise Owl Wellness, located in Tucson, Arizona, where it is sunny and warm most of the time. So welcome to my home studio, and thank yourself for setting aside the time to figure out how in the heck you're going to do this. You're going to start a home practice and maintain it. So in this workshop, we're going to identify your practice space. We're going to create your yoga plan, and we're going to carve out time for you to do that practice and help you stick to the plan. So if that sounds like what you're looking for, you're in the right place. By now, you know that yoga is good for you. You know that it improves your health and well-being from all sorts of ways. It helps to increase flexibility. It reduces stress. It helps to boost your confidence. It helps to build strength and can help you breathe better. It helps lower your blood pressure and improve your sleep. It helps to keep us calm under pressure, and it helps to cultivate self-compassion. So important for us these days and every day. So with all the benefits to practicing yoga, why aren't you practicing? So we have to think about what are the reasons that we're not getting our practice in. And there are just as many reasons for not practicing as there are for benefits of practicing. And they range anywhere from time. I don't have the time to practice. I'm already busy. How am I going to fit it into my day? Or money. I don't have extra money to spend on studio classes and online classes and trainings and all of this stuff and books. How can I make my practice manageable and not spend a fortune? It may be travel. If you're going to classes and not having a way to get there, or maybe travel is just not feasible for you right now. So what are we going to do? We have to be able to practice at home. Maybe you're one of those people who thinks you can't do yoga because you're not flexible enough. Or maybe you're out of shape. And what I have to say about that is yoga is for everybody, every size, shape, age, ability, type, whatever, you can do yoga. So if you have specific questions or comments about that, we can address those at the end, and I'll let you know how to make this accessible for you. And then the majority of people who aren't practicing yoga at home just don't know where to start. They know that yoga is good for them. They know that there's access to yoga maybe on YouTube or live stream classes, or maybe their neighbor teaches yoga, but they just don't know how to get started. So we're going to address some of those reasons for not practicing and then figure out ways to make it manageable. We know that yoga is not new. Yoga is an ancient technique in a modern world. We know that yoga has been around for the last 5,000 years, and it's finally made its way to the West. And just over the past, 100 years or so, it's become more popular here in the West, and people are doing it as exercise. But if you go a little bit deeper into what yoga is, you might find that if you are a fan of breathing, you have been doing yoga the entire time you've been alive on the planet. Yoga is about breath work. It's about being still and silent and listening to the voice within. So it's not just all about the poses. So you have to figure out what kind of yoga do you want to be able to do, and then work from there. The word yoga means yoke, to join together, to unite. And so what we're practicing and joining together is our body, our breath, our mind, our emotions, our whole being. And where are we joining it? Right here, right now, in the present moment. So yoga encompasses mindfulness and present moment awareness as well. When you work with your body and your mind and your breath, and they're working together, you become more relaxed. You become more focused. So yoga can be done by anyone, anytime, anywhere. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need fancy yoga pants. You just need a willingness to sit down and breathe and be with your body. So we've all seen those maps, either on a trail or in a mall or in a city that says you are here. So wherever you are in the world, you are here. And that's where you start. You start where you are. This is your practice, nobody else's. There's no competition in yoga. It's only about what are you getting from the practice, or what do you want to get from the practice? And then you design your practice around whatever it is you want. If you're brand new to yoga, nobody expects you to jump into handstand, unless it's maybe yourself. But here's the thing, you don't start there. You think about making the commitment to start right where you are. And maybe that's just sitting down right here, right now, and making a commitment to doing your practice. Maybe you don't even do your practice today. Maybe today you just make the decision to do your practice. That's enough. So what we're going to do is maybe sit for just a moment and get comfortable wherever you are. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you can do that. We're just going to ask our body a couple of questions. The first question that I'd like you to ask your body is, what kind of practice am I looking for, body? Do I feel energetic today? Do I want to move in a way that uses a lot of energy? Do I feel slow and sluggish today? Do I need a practice that wants to be slow and easy? Did I rest well last night? Am I tired? Do I need a practice that restores my energy? And then the last question we'll ask the body is, how are you breathing, body? How are you breathing right now? And maybe we just want to address breathing a little bit better. There's no wrong way to practice. And guess what? You're not even locked in to what your decision is today, what kind of practice you need today. Our body changes every day. Our energy level changes every day. Our life circumstances change every day. And so we need a practice that's going to be, for lack of a better word, flexible. So we're trying to bring yoga into our life for flexibility in body, in mind, and in self-compassion. So bringing in the idea that we're not going to beat ourselves up if we didn't practice today, or if we skip our practice tomorrow. That we know that every single time we come to the mat is a new experience and a new day. And so we start again. If you're familiar with meditation techniques, then you know that every day we approach our practice with what's called a beginner's mind. And every day we begin again. And that's a beautiful place to be when you're just starting out with a practice, or if you're returning to a practice after some time away. You can always remember, I'm a beginner again. And that's where you start, right where you are. So looking over the answers that you received from your body, what type of practice you might be looking for today. It doesn't mean it's the type of practice you're going to stick to forever. Think about the ways in which you want to move right now. And hold on to that. We'll come to it at the end and see if we can design a practice around how you're feeling right now, today. Once you kind of ask yourself these questions when you're designing your practice, you need a place to practice, right? Like we have to figure out, where the heck am I going to do the yoga? So start thinking about the place in your home where you could fit the size of a yoga mat, because really that's all the space you need. Keeping your body in the parameters of the mat, that's about all the space you really need for a yoga practice. You don't need a huge room that's beautiful and has incense burning and candles and all of that. We'll get to that later. But for just starting your practice, clear some space. Maybe it's moving the coffee table, or maybe it's folding up a Murphy bed in a spare room, or maybe it's in the hallway. Or maybe you have a large bathroom. I know some people who practice in their master bathroom, and they know that's the only place they can have that's quiet and peaceful to themselves anyway, so why not practice there? And then, if you don't have space in those areas in your home, start thinking outside your walls. Do you have a space outside that might be conducive to your practice? Maybe you have a porch or a screened-in area or a patio. Or maybe you have access to parks that are open and free and you can go and visit and practice outside. You can practice yoga almost anywhere. You can practice indoors or outdoors. All you really need is a quiet space where you're going to be left alone for some time, and enough level ground so that you're not falling all over the place when you're trying to do those fancy balance poses. And if you are really limited in space, then grab a chair and have a seat. You can do the poses seated in a chair. So sometimes we have to think about the excuses that we make for not doing our practice and trick ourselves to work around them. But once we have a space, personalize it. Make it your yoga space. I get asked all the time, what kind of yoga mat should I buy? And my answer is always the same. Buy the yoga mat that makes you want to get on it. It doesn't matter if it costs $50, $5, or if it was free from a friend. If it makes you want to get on it, that's the mat for you. Then you can add in some candles, maybe play some music, maybe put some aromatherapy in a diffuser, or paint the space a color that's calming or energizing for you. Make it whatever it is. Add some artwork, some pillows, whatever you want to do to make it a space that you actually want to come into. Then, when you have your space set up, consider your view. If you have a space where you can see outdoors and it's calming and the birds are singing, what a beautiful place. If you're like me and you look out into a parking lot, then you might want to consider a wall covering. And I'll just turn my screen so you can see the one that I have. It's just a beautiful covering that looks like I'm in the woods. So we can make all kinds of little touches that are personalized for your personal yoga space. Make sure that the temperature in your space is controllable or at least tolerable, especially if you're working outside. Like here in sunny Tucson, right about now, that's this time of year, it's a great time to get outside and practice. But in June or July, nobody wants to be outside practicing, even in the shade. So think about the temperature as well, and hopefully you can adjust it to a level that's comfortable for you. Overall, your space should be warm and inviting. Once you have your space, you have an idea of how you want to move or not move, you might want to gather some tools, or I call them toys. So a yoga mat might be nice, but it's not necessary. You could use a towel or a blanket, or if you have carpeting, that's nice too. If you opt for a mat, I do recommend one that's non-slip, but again, you can use whatever makes you want to get on it. Props are a great way to help you maintain your practice. If you ever get discouraged in your practice, try adding a block. It might just make the difference of being comfortable or frustrated in your poses. Props come in many, many different arrays. You can have blocks that bring the ground closer to you to extend your reach. You can have straps that help you be able to reach longer if you're trying to reach your toes. You can have bolsters, which I'm sitting on right now, that lifts me up and supports me, or yoga blankets that also offer support and versatility in folding and rolling them up however you need. And if you don't have those props, be creative. Grab some cushions off your sofa, grab some pillows off your bed, roll up a bath towel or a big blanket or a sheet, and use that as a blanket or block. You could also use an old necktie or a bathrobe tie as a strap. Dog leashes work great. So again, thinking about how can you use props and not have to spend a lot of money in order to do that. There are still ways to get around it. Once you have your space and your toys, you're going to make a date with yourself and you're going to keep it. So we all have busy lives and we all have our day planners and our calendars and our alarms and everything to let us know the important times where we have to be certain places and do certain things. If you are serious about committing to your yoga practice, you have to schedule it. You have to set aside time where you're going to actually show up for yourself. Your yoga practice is a beautiful act of self-care. It's showing up for you. So make a date. And here's the thing, you can actually do yoga every day. Yoga can look different every single day that you show up to practice it. So maybe one day you show up and do breath work. Just sit and take 10 deep breaths. That's a beautiful practice. Maybe one day you want to just move around a little bit and work off some excess energy or burn off some anger or whatever you want to work through. Or maybe you want to do a combination of both, or maybe you just want to sit with your legs up the wall and get a little restoration. So whatever that looks like for you as far as your practice, schedule it and know that you have to show up, or the other person's going to be really upset, and the other person is that one inside that you hear that little voice telling you, I should be on my mat. So don't disappoint them. Show up. You can always start small, but in order to build the discipline, we call that tapas in yoga, to build the discipline that it takes to create the habit of maintaining your practice, you got to show up. So it can be very small. Maybe set aside just 10 minutes. And if you don't have 10 minutes, how about 5? Start with whatever time you have. Even the busiest person can find 5 minutes to breathe. Pick a time of day that works for you. One of the big questions that I get about yoga is, what's the best time to practice? Should I be practicing in the morning? Should I practice in the evening? When do I make time for my practice? And again, the answer is practice when you feel like practicing. If you wake up in the morning and you think, I should get on my mat, then get on your mat and boom, you're done. Your practice is over. You finished it. Or maybe you have lots of stuff to do. You've got a family and kids and you're getting them off to school and work and all of this stuff, and your mornings are hectic. Then practice in the evening. It's a great way to recover from the daily activities and the daily hustle and bustle. And here's the thing, just like with the practice that you are engaging in or the practice that you think you want to play with in that day and time, the time of day you practice may change. Sometimes you might practice in the morning and sometimes you might practice in the evening. Or sometimes you might find yourself with a little free time in the middle of the day and that's the time you practice. So what you can do is when you're planning out your daily tasks for the week or the month, start to pencil in your times for yoga. What are those open spaces? Because those are the times we usually spend scrolling on social media or Netflix and chill or whatever it is that we're going to do to fill up those blocks of time. So you might as well add in your yoga practice. We have the time. The truth is, we make time for things that are important to us. And because you're watching this right now, I know that creating and maintaining a yoga practice at home is important to you. So put it on your calendar. Commit to your practice and Don't beat yourself up if you don't make it. Things happen. Life happens. Sometimes we know that we have things on our schedule and we have to make adjustments. That's the beauty of a home yoga practice. It's flexible. So be flexible and don't beat yourself up for not making it. Start again the next day. Now that you kind of figured out what kind of movement or non-movement you're interested in for your practice, and you've created the space and you've set up the time and you have your toys that you want to play with, your props, now it's time to set an intention. When you show up on your mat, what are you going to do when you get there? It's important to figure out what it is that you'd like to receive from your practice so that when you arrive to do the practice, you're not wasting any time. You just get in and do it. So how do you set an intention? It's really simple. All you have to do is ask your body, what do I need today, body? Or you could ask, what do I need from my practice today? Have I been really stressed out? Do I need some calm in my life? Does my body feel stiff from working in the garden all day? Do I just need to stretch and relax? Was I up all night tossing and turning? Do I need a restorative pose today? Those are the questions that are going to help you figure out what you want to receive from your practice so that when you do show up, you've got that in mind and you're ready to work with it. Your yoga practice is whatever you want it to be. Ask yourself, what do I want to get out of the practice, or what would be most beneficial to me right now? Sometimes the practice that we need is not exactly the practice that we want. So if we are always going, maybe we don't need a very energetic practice. Maybe the practice for us in that time is a slowing down. So just ideas to think about how you can structure your class. So you might think about focusing on physical strength if you want to add physical strength to your body. Maybe you want more flexibility in body or mind. Maybe you just want some quiet time, some me time. Maybe you're looking for relaxation, or maybe you're rehabbing an injury or an illness. Whatever your intention for practice, allow it to change and grow as you change and grow. Now you're ready to design your sequence. You're like, okay, I'm here. I've got my intention. What am I going to do? This, again, is your practice. You can do anything you want. A lot of times we get caught up in what we think yoga should be like, and we want to check boxes and make sure we do it in this specific order. But the truth is, you can do anything. Just set the timer and move or breathe or whatever you feel like doing. If you have absolutely no idea how to do that, here's some guidelines. You want to start maybe with just an easy seated pose or a standing pose like mountain pose, and just observe your breath. That's yoga too. Or maybe you do a few sun salutations to warm up. And if you don't know what sun salutations are, we have YouTube for that. So find a practice that works for you. Maybe you do 3 or 5 rounds of sun salutations to warm up the body. And then after that, maybe you feel great and you're done. Or maybe that was just your warm up and you want to explore a little bit more. The great thing about a sun salutation, especially for beginners, is that it's a full practice in itself. It works all the major muscle groups of the body. So if you do nothing else besides sun salutations, that's fine. You've worked the entire body. Maybe you want to choose a pose that you're interested in, that looks interesting to you, or you want to try and work towards. So maybe work with a pose for a while until you feel comfortable with doing it in a specific way. You might want to play with moving into and out of the pose, or play with holding it for different amounts of time, just to see the nuances of the pose and how it feels in the body. The more you play with one particular pose, the more it will change for you, because the way you perceive that pose will change. And then maybe you just try different variations of the same pose. Perhaps you're trying tree pose, and today you don't feel like doing tree pose, so do it lying down. Make the same shape with your body, just do it lying on the ground. Or maybe use a chair or the wall. Change up the way that you're doing the pose, and that will give you a different perspective and a different experience with the pose. Maybe you want to build up to adding 2 or 3 more poses the more you start to get on your mat. So maybe the first week you just do some sun salutes. And maybe the next week you do some sun salutes and add in another pose. And then you keep adding in another pose or changing them out, however you see fit. The bottom line is you can create your sequence however you want. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 5 to 10 to 15 minutes. But what you should do is always leave room for relaxation when you're finished. Allow your body to rest and receive those beautiful benefits that you just practiced. So we call that corpse pose or shavasana. And that's where you just lie down and relax. Try and release all tension from the body. Try and allow your mind to relax. You might even fall asleep. So make sure you set an alarm, set a timer for how long you want to be there, and then you're ready to finish the rest of your day. If you're ending your practice with corpse pose or shavasana, I recommend at least 3 minutes, but I really like 5 to 7 to 10. So it depends on how much time you're allowing for your practice, but allow at least that amount of time for your relaxation. So now you have an idea of how to set up a space, how to show up, how to have an intention, how to figure out what you want to do while you're there. So ready, set, yoga. Off you go. You're ready to begin, but now what? Make sure you dress for comfort. You want to pick some clothing that feels good in your body, that moves freely, that doesn't constrict your movement. But that means you don't have to spend $200 for yoga pants. Shorts and a t-shirt work fine, really anything that feels good to you. Yoga is best done barefoot because it helps to build strength in the feet, which helps with balance. But if you have foot issues and need to wear shoes, then wear shoes. If your feet are cold and you want to put socks on, put socks on. There really aren't any set rules as long as you're comfortable and safe. And then once you're on the mat, start with just breathing. Focus on breathing in and out through the nose as much as possible. If you are noticing that you tend to breathe more through the mouth, that's okay. Just notice it. And then try and breathe through the nose as much as you can during the practice. It's more important to breathe however you feel comfortable than to try a new breathing technique right away. Breathing techniques also should probably be practiced with a practitioner or a teacher, just because there's some nuances that you may not be aware of, especially as a beginner. See if you can make your inhales and exhales the same length. That's a great practice to play with as a beginner. All you're trying to do is breathe in the same amount of air that you are trying to breathe out. You can do that with counting. And it really doesn't matter what number you count to, as long as you're counting to the same number as you breathe in and breathe out. Typically, the number is 4, just to give you a nice full inhale to the count of 4 and a nice full exhale to the count of 4. But again, every person's experience is different, and you may not be able to breathe that much, or you may be able to breathe much more. So find what works for you. And remember, the number one rule of yoga is no pain, no pain. So that's different from our gym mentality of no pain, no gain. In yoga, nothing should be painful. Sometimes we work into a place of uncomfortable. And that is usually the place where we learn a lot about ourselves, about our limitations, about our abilities. And so if we're moving into the space of uncomfortable, see if you can hang out there comfortably. So what we're looking for is comfortably uncomfortable, but it should never move into the realm of painful. So that's called the edge, and that's how you progress in your postures. You just want to kind of push it a little bit to the point where it's like, oh, I'm really feeling that, and it's not that comfortable, but it's not painful. And then the more you practice in that space, the more that edge moves. And so you gain more flexibility, you gain more strength, you gain more willpower. So that's how you can challenge yourself in your practice. But then again, if your intention is just to relax or just to be calm, then we're not even going to go to the edge. Just have a nice experience. Nobody cares if you can't touch your toes. But here's the thing, with regular practice, you will start to notice progress in whatever it is you're trying to achieve with your practice. So it might be a good idea to start keeping a journal, a yoga journal, if you will, right at your mat, paper and pen, something to jot down, little insights that come to you during and after your practice. Yoga is all about being here now. It's about awareness. So take the time to really feel what the poses feel like in your body. Sometimes we're so used to going that we don't even know where we're headed. We just know we're moving. Yoga allows us the time to stop, slow down, and really have an experience of where is my body in space? What is my breath doing? And when we pay attention to the body and the breath, our mind is occupied. So we're not allowed to think about all that stuff that's jumbled up in there all the time, all those thoughts that are just going. And the mind starts to calm down, bringing it present with the body. So as you're moving, things you might want to remember is to note what parts of the body feel like they're getting a stretch. What parts of the body are holding a little bit of tension so that I don't fall over? What parts of the body feel relaxed here? Where can I release tension? And then ultimately, how's my breathing? Am I able to take full breaths in this pose? Am I able to notice the quality of my breath, and can I improve on that? So once you start asking yourself those questions when you're in the postures, you'll notice you're in the postures a little longer than you might have been normally. So that awareness is what calms the mind. It takes the focus away from all the other stuff we're normally thinking about. And so we can use the yoga practice to experience that fleeting moment of the present. If you are not ready to head out to the nearest studio, don't worry. You can always design your own yoga classes. That's what the internet is for. Maybe you find a teacher on YouTube that you enjoy practicing with. I have a couple of recommendations that I'll drop in at the end of the session. Or maybe you just Google a couple of poses and find some poses that feel good in your body. There's no wrong way to do it. You can always design your own poses. Just pick a couple that you want to work with, get on your mat, and play with them. Have fun with your practice, because the more fun it is, that's how you're going to stick to it. So documenting your experience in a yoga journal helps to keep you accountable. Not only do you get to track how your practice is going and what poses you're playing with and what you're frustrated with or what you're pleased with, it helps to keep you accountable, knowing that you showed up. So you can put in your journal the time, the date, what you're working on, anything that you found challenging or anything that you were surprised that you thought would be challenging and turned out to be not so. Those are the things that you'll go back and look through and realize, hey, this practice is actually working for me. Or maybe you'll find this practice isn't really working for me. Let me look and see what I need to change. Either way, it's a great idea to keep track of your progress. One of the ways you could do that is, if you're not writing a journal, is you could take a photo journal. For example, for me, I've been working on a pose called handstand splits for about 4 years now. And every 6 months or so, I take a picture of myself in that posture. And even though to other people it might look like almost identical, pose every 6 months, I can tell that there's just a little bit of progress. And that's enough to keep me motivated to keep working at it. So maybe you want to have your yoga selfies, or maybe you want to share your journal or your journey with some friends, and maybe set up an online community or your neighborhood community where you maybe practice together. That's a great way to get other people involved and to also stick to your practice. So start thinking about how you're going to stay accountable to your practice. And then maybe your documentation will inspire someone else to start their journey. So that's enough talk. What I'd like to do is offer you a very short practice of a couple of poses that most people know, and that way you have something to start with. So clear a little space, and if you don't want to practice with me today, that's okay. You can watch or maybe take some notes. But I'm going to clear some space and give you just a short little 7 or 8 minute practice. And then we'll switch over to question and answer, and that way we can go from there. So I'm going to start on my mat, just sitting. So come into a comfortable seated position, and we're just going to start focusing on the breath. Maybe you'll bring hands to the belly or a hand to the heart to feel the breath as it moves in the body. And if there's a particular intention that you'd like to bring to this practice, maybe ask your body, what do you need? What would you like to receive? Maybe it's just a little bit of confidence to be able to do a home practice. On our next inhale, let's bring the arms up overhead. Just sweep them up. Maybe your palms touch, maybe they don't. As you exhale, let's just bring the palms back down to the ground. Feel that stretch as you inhale, lifting your ribs and opening up in the chest. And as you exhale, feel the weight of your arms as they float back down. Let's do it one more time. And then from there, big breath in, reach up. And as we exhale, bring one hand to the front of your body, one hand around to the back, maybe to the side, and just turn a little bit to the side. Inhale, come back to the center, and let's exhale to the other side. So just introducing a little bit of movement to the spine here. Inhaling to the center, and exhaling, taking a little twist. One more time. Then inhale back to the center, and exhale the hands back down to the ground. Let's walk the fingertips of one hand out to the side as we inhale the other arm up, and then exhale, just lean into that side a little bit, keeping both of your hips on the ground, just letting that lean come from the rib cage. And then slowly come back up to the center. Let that hand come down to the ground and tiptoe those fingers right out to the side. Inhale the arm up, and exhale, lean over. Keep it nice and gentle at first, and maybe on the next time, inhale, come up. Maybe this time as you exhale, go just a little bit deeper. See if you can reach up through the fingertips, reaching as far as you can. And then coming back up just one more time on the other side. And then just reach as far as you can. Feel that nice stretch. And slowly come back up, and we'll move on to our hands and knees. Now, when you're working on the hands and knees, sometimes you might want a little bit of extra cushion under the knees. So grab a blanket and just place it under the knees where it feels good. Stacking the hips over the knees and the wrists underneath the shoulders. Begin to let your belly reach down toward the ground as you inhale and look up. And as you exhale, tuck your tailbone, tuck your chin, reach that spine up high. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, coming into cow pose, belly toward the ground. And as you exhale, round the back like a scaredy cat or cat pose. 1 more time. Inhale, look up. And exhale, round the back. Coming to a flat back, just on all fours. Tuck those toes under. And we're going to press our hands into the earth as we shift our hips up and back into a downward facing dog. And while we're here, just stretch and move any way that feels good. And if you're feeling frisky, maybe you send a foot up to the sky. Maybe you play here a little bit. What does your body want to do? And then let's start to walk the feet up towards the hands. Bringing the hands onto the shins, let's inhale, flatten the back out. And exhale, bring the hands back down toward the ground. And let's step those feet back again. Coming into that downward facing dog. And on our next exhale, let's bring the knees back down. And then just move any way that feels good to you here. Whatever stretch or movement. And then we'll come back to a seated position. And from that seated position, we're going to lie down on the back. So go ahead and lie down, and right about now, let's just hug those knees into the chest. Rocking gently. And if it feels comfortable, go ahead and bring those knees all the way over to the ground on one side. Let your arms float out to the sides. Then let's change sides. Just windshield wipe those knees all the way over to the other side. And then once again, back to the center. Give yourself a great big hug. It might be the only one you get today, so make it good. And then bring the feet down to the ground. Stretch the legs all the way out. Bring your arms alongside your body with the palms up and wiggle around a little bit until your body feels comfortable. Allowing yourself to rest here. We'll just do 5 deep breaths. And then begin to wiggle the fingers and toes. And maybe hug those knees into the chest once again, rocking gently side to side. And maybe crossing the ankles and rocking gently forward and back until you can roll up like a ball and come back to a seated position. Taking a moment here to notice how your body feels. Notice your breathing. Connecting back to the intention that you set for the practice. Did you receive what you came for? And then give yourself a bow of gratitude, thanking yourself for your practice. Thank you for letting me guide you. And now I will open it up to some Q&A. So if you have any questions or comments, we'll share them now.